Hey, welcome to Web3 Weekly with your host, Blockstar Technology.
Let's go.
Alright guys, welcome to episode 23 of Web3 Weekly.
Yeah.
So, say big hi to the Twitter Nation, the Insta Nation, and today we have awesome Alex is building the whole Twitter name. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us for this week. Taking time off your, amazing, what's happening in your life to give us some of your valuable time. So, today in the podcast, it's myself, Kosi, and Charlie, the legendary Charlie. Let's get started. So today, this space is what we're talking about is the builders in the space, right? And people are saying like, oh, it's the bear market and everything else, but you can see some like great people building great products and really looking at the utility side, right?
Yeah.
And we thought it will be awesome to invite someone who's truly, when people say, oh, we are building, we want to correct some real people who are really building, and what it means, what it looks like, when the building is. So, Alex, on that note, legend, I'm going to pass it to you, mate, to get a little bit about your background and what you're doing in this space.
Cool. So thank you for having me, Cozy and Charlie. This is a lot of fun. I actually got to meet Cozy at NFT Fest, so it's fun to rekindle and reconnect. So my name's Alex. On Twitter, I'm Alex is Building, which felt like a very apt name. Everyone was asking where the builders in the space. I just thought I'd make it easy for them. But my background is I've been in the blockchain space for about 8 years now. I got in all the way when blockchain was just called blockchain, and the things that we now track with NFTs was just called data. And that's what I was really excited about and got me immersed in it, particularly as someone who was really into collecting sneakers back then and just kept on trying to find good deals and was buying fakes and just always felt like there had to be a better way for knowing and trusting people in that market. And that's where my passion for blockchain started, a genuine use case that would solve my problem. So I went all the way down that rabbit hole and have been lucky enough in that time to consult to some incredible brands. So the one I always call out is the NBA, but for people in Australia, another one is actually Mecca. So that they were a client of mine, and I'm also a builder in the space. So now I've launched my project Brictopians. We're just over a year old, and I'm building on that every single day. So for anyone that wants the TLDR on that, basically it's what would happen if you threw the most computer power possible at an NFT collection? What would you get? You'd get a Brictopian. And now we're building on that every single day with what we feel like we did the impossible in the digital world. Now we're doing the impossible in the physical world with what we're creating in the Brain Boot, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point during this talk.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Charlie, you want to start?
Yeah, so Alex, I noticed that you said the throwing superpower at your Bricktopian collection of What was the process of that? Because I have seen your collection around and seen you talking about it a lot. But what was the workings behind making every one of those unique? And yeah.
So that's a really awesome question, Charlie. So I think the way to answer that is to give the origin story of like how we came to decide on making Bricktopians, which was we're quite early to the NFT building space. We started building around end of July, start of August in 2020. I used to say last year, but now it's a while ago. So 2021. And at that time, the biggest collections, like it was quite a fresh space. And the way that builders were creating innovations was they were making what we now call derivatives of the legacy collections, whether it be CryptoPunks or Bored Apes. And so I bought into this collection that I really loved called Fusion Apes, which was an AI interpretation of the Bored Ape Yacht Club that made like Fidenza style apes. So we asked ourselves, what is our version of this? What's something cool that we can do? We started creating a collection called Brickto Pumps, which was kind of, as you can imagine, we asked ourselves, what's a pixel in real life? It's a brick. So we started making this collection.
That's cool.
And we got a lot of like really incredible names that were supportive of the project, really liked what we were doing. Like it was a completely different time then. Like for example, we caught up with Avery Akineni, the head of Vayner3, I think they call themselves now. At the time it was Vayner NFT. Andy Kranak from VFriends was like, yeah, this is a really cool concept that you guys are brewing up. I really like it. We had this massive community growing around what we were doing. But then we started to see that derivatives, they just essentially would get hot for 1 minute and then would fade away off into the distance and never really be able to create anything meaningful ever again. And so we're like, well, that's not what we want to create. So we want to do something massively impactful, something that moves the space forward. So we had a Discord community of around 40,000 people, and we were like, okay, we all love bricks, but we can do so much better than this. And so we're going to delete the collection and we're going to start again. And we're going to create something really profound. And so the development process for that was we had to go, okay, back to the drawing board. What is it that we actually want to create? We didn't just want to create, at the time we'd created an algorithm which essentially interpreted 2D art and kind of like reinterpret them as bricks. But like, well, what if we could apply this to a 3D face, increase the number of bricks that are actually used throughout the models? And then what if we took it one step further and actually made them all moving? Because we hadn't really seen any moving NFTs and we wanted them all to move in their own unique way. And so from an art perspective, my co-founder, Law Degree, he had to really get into the trenches of pushing the limits of what's possible. But then we also assembled a much larger team around actually executing the pipeline of the practicalities of what that means to actually produce every single one by one. Because originally, they were just getting produced on my co-founder's laptop, which even though it was a MacBook Pro, a very nice laptop, was with most collections that we know, you can actually make them in about 10 minutes if you just use like the splicing algorithm. But each of these, I love to say, if you were to make it on a single laptop, it would have taken you 10 years to just load every Bricktopian. So it's called rendering if you're from the industry, but the way most of us would think about it is if you ever like load up a game like Red Dead Redemption, you're like, far out, this is taking a while. That's because they're loading the environment and the water and all the different things. Apply that to Bricktopians, it'd take you 10 years to make it on a computer. So it wasn't just the technology that actually made it possible. It was basically better. I had to bet my life savings on that team to actually execute and deliver that pipeline. And thankfully, the beautiful fusion between art and technology came together, and now we have Bricktopians.
Wow.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's cool.
Sick, isn't it?
Cool origin story, that one.
Exactly. Alex, on that, I think this is perfect to move on to the next one, which is the challenges, right? I think what we're talking about when challenges, like a lot of people think, okay, you know what, you got an NFT project. Now, what's on the roadmap, right? Before even the builders get a chance to breathe, like we're like, what is the utility? What is this? What is that, right? So before we even get to that part, before even we get to doing the NFT or the token or the project, I would like to what are the key challenges that you remember that really changed the, like we can call it like more like the inflection points that like, oh my God, this challenge was the one that really, because I want to talk about the idea challenge, one of the challenges that the idea, and one of the challenges in the technicality and the minting day, and the next challenge is the building community. So I want to highlight those four questions in the challenges, because I think that's where the magic happens. And so the idea, the challenge, what was it like?
Yeah, so there are a couple of challenges in there that really define our history for me. So the first one, definitely on a personal note, was kind of that uncertainty of basically putting all your chips into the center of the table and betting on an outcome that was quite uncertain, because the market at that time would go up and down on a 2-week basis. And so like, NFTs are the best thing ever. No one's ever going to buy an NFT again. And it would like go through these cycles. And there was definitely like that kind of burned the boats. Like you've put it all on the line. Now you have to give it your everything. Was like a level of flow state and like this beautiful, it was like trying to play like a sports championship. Like it's like you worked all this work to get to this point, put it all in, and now you have to execute. And for me, I've never experienced a level of work rate or ever gotten anything out of myself quite like that until actually getting into this world, which is the next challenge, is the level of responsibility that you carry. And I don't take that lightly at all. I think a lot of founders make a mistake coming into the space thinking that, I've got these great ideas and like I've raised out the gates, like I've had a really successful raise, it's blue skies from here. It's like, no. You have like a really strong accountability to your community and to your vision, and to pivot the vision if it's not working. Like you also need to know kind of like when to hold them and when to fold them and when to take things in a new direction. But also you need to know when you need to give your vision enough time for it to pay off, right? And so that balancing all of those mindsets on a day-to-day basis is the biggest thing I have to consider. So I'm constantly having to evaluate, is our roadmap the right roadmap? How much do I disclose versus not disclose? Because it's like create a level of interest and hype versus keeping aces in the back pocket that I can whip out when I need to. And also then balancing which parts of that roadmap do you develop in parallel, because people think I think anyone that runs a business knows this, but to people that might have not experienced that before, people think that you just throw more bodies at a challenge and it gets solved. And the reality is even if you created 7 teams, for each team is for a different piece of utility, that actually doesn't create effective outcomes. What you need is focus and direction and really giving it to the things that make the greatest impact. So over the past year, I've had to learn what creates impact with keeping a community engaged. What are the things in a roadmap that people actually care about versus do nothing? Like the do nothing examples, people in the bull market, I used to get a lot of pressure to create a clubhouse in the metaverse or to create merch as a utility because everyone was doing merch and like all these things. And the most challenging part in all of that was to be disciplined on some things, to say, no, I get that that's the flavor of the month, but that's going to take us off course on the real vision, but then also being open enough to hear suggestions that you might not have thought of and integrate them into the pathway. So that balance is like the day-to-day challenge of what it actually is to run an NFT project. The other part of it, of course, as well, is that it's a 24/7 cycle. So I've had to become really, it's like, I think like the stock market, for example, or like businesses, like they trade like Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
We're open 24/7, 365, and we're in Australia on a different time zone to most of the rest of the world that cares about this. So I have to be really conscious of, if I know that I'm going to have some family time, like know that there's enough like of the team handling things that can keep that community engaged, keep that fire alive. If even into like the Christmas season, I remember I like pre-recorded videos and did all those sorts of things. It's kind of like, it's almost like bringing a child into the world and you need to grow and nurture it. But the great thing is if you fully commit to that, and I only think, actually I had another interview earlier today where I was talking about this. The guy asked me, what would your advice to founders be, if you could give one piece of advice? And it was only do it if you love it, or only create something that you love. And the reality is for me is that we were so passionate about the foundation we were setting with creating Bricktopians, about bringing something quality into the world. And we're so driven by our vision for what we've created in the 3D printed wearable space that is like a world first in that space, let alone in our world, like in Web3. Right. We're so driven by the macro parts of our vision that it's like, it makes all the challenges worth it. It makes the 24/7 cycle of it worth it. It makes being disciplined around lifestyle choices or maybe getting to see friends a little bit less. It makes it all worth it because we actually love what we're creating. And I think if you didn't love what you're creating, if you just created, like you tried to copy like Utes and Bored Apes and fuse them together and make something out of it, it's gonna sound like a really fun thing to do at first, and then you're gonna grow to find that it's really not as fun as it sounds.
Yeah.
100%, mate. I think, with regards to the technical side of things, right? We spoke about the computing power and the 10 years that would take to render it. And can you share with us, like, how did you overcome that technical challenge, please?
Yes. Yeah, so the biggest part of that was I've learned this. This is one thing I've learned as a founder. I'm definitely not perfect. So one recent example is I made a bad hire so we've got a free mint coming up. I like to keep things scarce, so only 1,000 people are getting them, even though we have 10,000 NFTs. But I recently, to use the bad example before going to the good one, I recently made a bad hire. I was actually talking to you about this, Cozy, when we met up.
Yes.
And when you're running an organization, you really learn, like, I remember listening to like startup founders, they'd always talk about like people like Brian Armstrong, from Coinbase, and any successful like $1 billion CEO or whatever, they'd always talk about the biggest challenge is hiring.
Yes.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, just find someone that's qualified for the job, get them to do the job, make the job pretty straightforward. And you really do learn that finding talent is extremely rare. And there's like a crossover between mindset, skill set, and then a couple other intangibles that really make a person who they are. Like I've also experienced people who are extremely skilled but just didn't have the culture fit, and even that you'd think wouldn't be an issue, but that actually is something you learn. You need to have all three to be like a really effective individual. So on the bad side, I felt the impacts of delayed comms from someone can be something that has on-flow effects and affects how I communicate, or misaligned expectations or miscommunicated expectations. All those things can be really what hurts a project, and for me has been one of the biggest like growing pains and challenges that I've had to overcome. And thankfully, I've got a community where I can say, hey guys, here's the situation. I made a bad hire. I want to rebuild this with the right people. So we're going to push it back and we're going to do it the right way. And now we're executing. And now I've got someone that I really enjoy working with on that task, for example.
Yeah.
Similar thing was when we started to find people for the technical challenge, my co-founder, he's like a real, he calls himself a technocrat. He's really, really in the weeds. And he can kind of like sniff out people who actually know their stuff versus people who are kind of like selling you on, I can do the work, but can they actually? Because we knew this was going to be an absolute technical challenge. So I can credit my co-founder with having the like bloodhound nose to be able to speak the language of the individual and know. It was basically, he called me and he said, oh, this guy, Kevin, I spoke to him. Okay, we've spoken to like 10 other people, but this guy's the real deal. And
awesome.
I could tell because he was telling me, no, that's not possible. You should do it this way, or you should do it this way. And he was like calling him out on things. And he's like, that's what I want. I want the person who actually is like, hasn't just read the brief, but has kind of internalized it and gets it. And so they thankfully had all the access they needed to rendering capabilities. This wasn't done. Sometimes you can use a cloud renderer, which is like we've used a farm in France before where they have a bunch of GPUs hooked up. For a job like this, need a little bit more firepower than those would usually give us. And thankfully these guys are local. They handled it for us and basically ran the entire pipeline. But I've now learned if I was to run a pipeline like that myself, I'm like, I am not the person to run that pipeline. And I'm also not the person to hire for that pipeline. You want people that are experts. And so we've had to learn when there's important stuff, like overhire, like even if you feel like you've got the right person, keep searching, really get under the skin of it. And whereas if there's other things you need more quickly, and they're not high risk, that's when you can be a little bit more scrappy and startup-y and just go for it and get a task done.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point that you mentioned there, Alex, because you mentioned that, just the skill is not enough, and you are just well, in our humble opinion, you are spot on, because hiring for skill is a short-term win but a long-term loss. And we have an ethos that we say that, it's people first, culture second, skills third, or the results third. You know what I mean? You can always upskill someone, but having that right culture is super important to to be on the same wavelength as you, and understand where you're coming from and bring that value.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
but
please go
actually,
ahead.
Like, I love listening to podcasts with other founders of different industries and hearing like the either people ahead or at the same level as you, and hearing the same stories come up over and over again. And Mr. Beast was a great example that like really made me feel a lot better. Was he was saying that he used to, when he was hiring for his like production team and people within his inner circle, he used to go to TV people and movie people, and he'd hire them in-house because they're more skilled, they've got the experience, they've got like all of that capacity, and they'd hire them, but their mindset, the way that they would talk, is they talk like, yeah, I'm going to use this and leapfrog into like a bigger, like the proper stuff, like movies or TV again, or like a bigger role in the traditional industries. And he's like, no, you don't get it. This is where the world is going. This is actually bigger than that. We got more, our Squid Game video got more views than Squid Game, and you want to go over there, you don't get it. And so he said, I now just hire people who are young, ambitious, and aggressive, and fast learners, and have the right mindset, and are entrepreneurial, and get it, and get the vision of the company. And I get the people who are already within here to either start to teach them the skills, or I empower them. I like hire them and then like tell them, all right, now go get the skills. And he'll even hire someone that's just like young and ambitious and has no idea what they're doing, and he'll say, follow me for a year, and then you'll learn how I think, and then you can just make decisions on my behalf. That type of mindset for me, I think in Web3 is actually, you don't need to go to that extreme, but it's like, that's really necessary, because the people in your team need to like get it. And it's like, even when we're talking about things like rarities, like someone like you need to talk to, you need to be able to explain that stuff and then understand that that is important. Like that is actually a really fundamental piece of the puzzle, whereas some animation group might just go, yeah, blah, 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 and we'll spit this thing out, and it's like, oh, what? They're all the same. Like, oh, sorry. Like, it's like, yeah, but they look great, don't they? It's like, yeah, that's we need to have like this cultural fit with like what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie, if you want to just say about, I mean, like, Alex, when you say like, oh, we don't go that extreme, I mean, Charlie, if you want to tell a little bit about the team that we have, like,
we've got all sorts on our team. We've got people with a world of knowledge. We've got a few tradies, former tradies. I'm a former tradie myself. From construction, and passion and hobby turned into a full-time job at Blockstars for me.
I mean, the guy who's behind this camera, Nathan. He's a young kid who.
Air conditioning.
Yep. Isn't it, Nathan? Yeah. Right. And had no prior. He had a bit of crypto, but not blockchain. And we have Boilermakers. I think what's important is that if you got passion, and if you're a good person, we can upskill you. There's YouTube, Udemy. I mean, as developers, you can't really code without, I would say like now, without ChatGPT or Copilot, right? That's where it's going, and that's okay. That's nothing bad. But everyone needs that support with, whether it's Google. I mean, without Google, I don't know how would people code these days with Stack Overflow, right? Yeah. So I think when we know that someone got passion, I think you just have to bottle it and really use it, and to make them, let them grow. I mean, giving that opportunity is the best thing you can do as an employer or anyone. If you can give that opportunity, that's super important. So,
yeah, 100%. Like, even on a personal level, I actually love, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. I love the accountability. It's challenging at times, but I do love the accountability that Web3 gives you, because it holds me to like a certain standard that I have to hit. There is no, like, often if you start a startup, you've got no bar. like a barometer or something telling you if you're doing a good job or not.
Yeah.
Web3 will tell you, and people like hold you that standard and tell you to be better. And so you're like, all right, I have to be better. Like for me, something that happened was I found that one of our most effective tools for generating sales was me going on Twitter Spaces. So I started going on more Twitter Spaces. I was spending a lot of time there, and I was getting sales, but then that made me look in the mirror. And it's like, I'm going to get better at sales. So I started reading everything I could about sales. I started watching a lot of Alex Hormozi's videos. He's got some really awesome stuff. And it's like, okay, now I have to become a better salesperson, which was just non-traditional to me. Like I can speak passionately about what we're creating, but sometimes you go on a space and it's like, pitch your project. And it's like, okay, I gotta like nail everything and like stick the landing and make a big song and dance about it. And I think about that a lot because it's like sales translates to everything in life. It translates to how we're going to negotiate with our suppliers. It makes me a better speaker when we're at events. It makes all these things better. I wouldn't have gotten I still have a long way to go, but I wouldn't have gotten as good as I've gotten now if it wasn't for being pushed so hard to be better. And so that's one of the things like I really love about Web3. And so it comes with a lot of heat, but every day I have to be better and I have to make our project better and I have to hold ourselves to that high standard so that we keep growing.
Yeah, I know what you mean there, Alex. Like some people that have heard about NFTs and they're like, oh, these guys have made millions of dollars, I'm going to jump in too. It's like you get in here and you realize, it's not just that easy. It's hard work. It's hard work.
Yeah,
and,
if you're not passionate about it, what you're doing, and having that long-term vision, that's it, right? You can't really push forward from there, right? You're gonna there'll be down days, like there'll be times that, as I think, as entrepreneurs or a project lead, you're gonna have good days. You're gonna have the highest highs and the lowest lows,
Yeah.
And how do you? Yeah. Go ahead. Please jump in.
And it's funny because like people hear that headline, and for me, I'm like, we reinvest so heavily, and I live in a 4-person share house with 3 of my guy friends. I don't have a car. Like we're just living super modestly and gunning it for the vision, because for us, like I think too many NFT projects, they do what's called premature scaling, and they basically like build out these massive teams and they start living these really lavish lifestyles thinking, oh, like we can just do this again. And it's like, no, you've like almost like raised capital and now you're pre-product market fit. You need to prove that your project has a sustainable revenue source before you feel like you actually have a business. Because you don't have a business. You have like this lightning in a bottle moment, but most of these companies are going to like fizzle out. And that's why for us, like the vision has always been physicals as the revenue stream, because I think regardless of NFT mindset, we all purchase products and we all feel comfortable purchasing products. People do not feel comfortable buying NFTs again and again and again and again from the same people. It kind of feels really like cheap and exploitative.
Yeah.
And so my mindset, where I'm trying to transition us to for 2023, is shift to an environment where the project is funded entirely by physicals and the digital side is very much a reward-driven pathway. And so it's like, if we can play like a figure 8 off those two, then we've done our job correctly. And that's basically the vision right now. I'm just plugging in a charger, by the way.
Yeah, that's
Awesome,
all good.
man.
Yeah. I mean,
And yeah, it's like that. Like I look at projects, like new projects, old projects, and it's hard to build that community and build that momentum up to tens of thousands of people that are willing to support you. But man, it's a lot harder to keep them keep them happy too, as you said earlier, Alex. It's
yeah. I mean, it needs. That's what I want to go next, actually, because let's talk about community and community, building a community. So you've done a project, right? You got an NFT, you build a business, right? And now you have to create this, not like a real world business where you build and you just do it on marketing and you know what? Okay, they will come, you build it. But now with the Web3 as a creator, now you have to work at, okay, like I built the project, now I have to build a community or build the community first and the project. And how did you work that out? Like, because now you're being almost, it's like saying, like people saying like, oh, now I got your NFT because I'm a shareholder now. That's what they feel like. Now they're like shareholder of Alex or the Bricktopians. Now you have to do what I tell you to do, not ask you to do, but what I tell you to do. So how do you find that balance, and what is your vision?
It's like the meme where you see the stick man with the stick poking Bitcoin going, do something.
Yeah.
It is a bit like that. It is a bit like that at times. So that's a really good question, and the answer starts with I'm surrounded by really great people. So the people in my community are awesome, especially the leaders and the most active individuals, the people who contribute without being asked, the people who make graphics, the people who go and speak in spaces. It starts with them. So that's not me. And then the second layer of that is my team. So we've got a really awesome community team. Shout out Bob Storm and Coutura and my man Frank, who's in Melbourne. In Australia, he's in Perth. All those individuals are really the glue that sticks everything together, because what they do is, if someone ever comes in the front door through me selling on a space or through my content, they are the open arms that welcomes these individuals, and it takes it from being, oh, I just bought this thing, to I've really joined something. Like I'm a part of something now. And something that I've found is that I learned something about how the most important part in creating a startup is that there's I think it's called the moment of activation, which is the moment where people go, oh, I get it. And if you can get people to have that aha moment, like that light bulb moment, then they're with you for life, and they really embrace what you're doing. And the perfect example is, for everyone that used Uber the first time, when you called an Uber, part of that moment was ordering with your phone, but that was kind of weird. The aha moment was when you were in the Uber and then you go to get out and you said, how much do I owe you? And the person goes, no, it's taken care of. It's like, what do you mean? Isn't this a taxi? I'll pay you. It's like, no, don't worry about it. It's on the phone. And then you get out of that and you're like, oh, I'm never taking a taxi ever again.
Yeah.
I'm with this thing for life, right?
Yeah.
And very much, I think the first few hours that someone joins a community is that moment. There have been so many people who have joined us, and so we place a massive emphasis on the leaders in the community being really switched on, welcoming people, making sure they understand what the near-term roadmap is, making sure that they feel welcome and embracing them. And then not just embracing them in that moment, but making sure that they're kind of it's like the new kid at school, and it's like, okay, just remember that they've joined us recently, even if they don't use our PFP, and let's just make sure that we continue to engage them. So we're really disciplined around those practices. I find that means that even if someone stops paying attention to Web3 for 6 months, they come back and we're the community that they want to hang out in. So that mentality has been really important in maintaining everything. And then from a practical standpoint, something that really has given us longevity is that we don't just have a Discord, we have almost like a Twitter Discord, like a general chat that's closed. Obviously, you can't find it, you have to get invited, but it's where all the Bricktopians can hang out on Twitter. Because I think after the whitelist grind meta burnt a lot of people out, where for anyone that might have joined a little bit later, that was where the way you got a whitelist to a project was going into the Discord and basically sending a message every 2 minutes and racking up points and being the most active. And most people got pretty exhausted of that, and Discord left kind of a sour taste in their mouth. But people need a home, people need someone to chat, and they still keep up to date with everything that's going on through Twitter. So I made this group chat on Twitter, and we found that's been really impactful, because if there's a space on the one we're in, we just post it in there, and everyone can oh, look, I'm already on here. Yeah. It's now one step to come across. It's not, I'm in another app, I check the announcements channel next to the community updates channel, next to the sneak peeks, and I have to find my way around it. It's oh no, I'm already here. Yep, done, I'm in. Or someone's got some really exciting life news, and it goes into that chat, as well as the general chat in Discord. But by having by kind of reducing that friction between what people are already doing, just makes it a lot easier for people to engage and really feel that warmth on a moment-to-moment basis. So that's kind of been the strategy behind it. But more than anything, it's been, in my opinion, that moment of activation and everyone taking the time to make that person feel warm.
Man, you said it so well. It's it's not that easy. Even though you laid out so well what that means, man, to get to that point, like to surround yourself with the right people. I mean, that's the hardest one, part of the whole thing, because you just like, I think you say like, oh, because I got the right people. I mean, get to that point is the hardest part in a community that, sometimes, when they first join, you don't really know who they are. You have to build that relationship and, the right people and how to create a mod out of those people,
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
and then they become a mod, and then now you got the right people. Okay, now they can welcome and all that stuff. I think that get to that part is where really the community as a leader, you Alex, transferring your energy, your culture to these the mods to be, and then getting them to become mods. I think that's a magic as a leader that you have, and let it flow through Discord. Man, that's unreal. So well done on that. And I know that you are like, we are like closing that, that time. I don't want to, make sure that, I know that you are like super optimized in time. So I want to make sure that we add value to the community. So I'm going to jump in this brain boot, right?
Yeah.
Man, I saw you rocked up. I recognize you from the brain boot, not from your face. I'm sorry. So
No,
I'm like,
that's the idea, isn't it?
dude, I told Charlie, we are the NFT face. I'm like, dude, I think because like that's a good. I seen that's Alex. Must be Alex. I need to go and chat to him. So I would love to. I heard a couple of bits and pieces about how that came about. I would love to hear that from you again, so that we can share that knowledge with the community, mate.
Yeah, so it's funny you tell that story. That story right there is kind of the exact idea behind the brain root, right? It's that I was telling a story that I've really enjoyed telling recently is like a big part of like the ethos behind why we made Bricktopians the way we made them was because for me, when I was first getting into the NFT space, and I bought an NFT, it was like this thing called an unstable horse yard. It was a horse wearing a Napoleon hat with like laser glasses or something like that, right? And you got this feeling like when you open your first deck of Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh cards or whatever, anything like that, right? And you're like, this is mine, this is so cool. And you show your friends, and they'd be like, what the hell is that? Why would you spend money on that? That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And what we wanted with Bricktopians was we wanted, when you whip out your phone and you show someone, or show your friend or your family member, they'd be like, look, I don't get all the other stuff, but that one's cool. I get that one. I get why you want to own that one or represent yourself with that. And the brain boot is an extension of that mentality. The fact that Cozy came up to me and was like, that's such a cool shoe, like I know this is the brain boot, is we want that to happen for you. We want you to get stopped in the street and people to be like, what is that? I've never seen that before. That is so cool. And then you can open that conversation and it's like, oh, this is actually like I got this through an NFT. Oh, there's actually some use behind NFTs. Like, which one, how did you get it? It's like, oh, this. And you show them the Bricktopian. It's like, okay, that is just all like awesome. Like, that is so cool. I need to be a part of this. Like, that's for me the vision of what I want our holders to have. That's the story that kind of guides my thinking. But the way it came to be, the brain root actually started before we started Bricktopians. So my co-founder, Laudergree, he has been a massive artist in the fashion space, behind some of the biggest brands. One we used to love to mention, a bit controversial now, is Yeezy, as well as Virgil, before all of this. Virgil Abloh, Young Thug, LaMelo Ball, the NBA player, so a bunch of really interesting people. But my co-founder, he was starting this road of creating a really innovative shoe that was actually designed by an algorithm. That's where the pipe comes from. It's kind of grown, not sculpted. And when we started going down that road, I said to him, this is a real, that origin story that I was talking about earlier about buying a fake pair of Yeezys, right? And getting screwed over early in life. I was like, this is actually a really perfect early use case of how an NFT can actually add utility. Like, you could sell this as an NFT and then we could make it burnable and you get the shoe. Like, that was the idea. So we started working on that before Bricktopians. But then with COVID, China shut down and we couldn't really get into manufacturing. So we're like, all right, let's park that for now. and then we re-emerged and started up. We started to enter the NFT scene, and we're like, all right, this is how we're going to make our mark. But as we re-emerged, and we're like, oh, this is actually the perfect utility for an NFT project. This is like a competitor to CloneX and Artifact at a fraction of the cost. And no one else is offering this utility because it's just so much easier to make more PFPs than it is to make something in the physical world. We're like, oh, this is perfect. Yeah. But something that we've fallen in love with is that in the prototyping phase, we started to 3D print samples, and we're like, whoa, hold on a second. What Web3 loves is adaptability, one-of-ones, rare collaborative pairs, all these sorts of things. And NFTs that were like the art could match the physical. And we're like, hold on, 3D printing is really the only way that you can do that, because to make any other shoe, the way you do it is you get a heat press aluminium mold, and it's kind of economies of scale. It's really expensive to make one, like crazy expensive. Yeah. But if you make 100,000 of them, suddenly making the shoes is really cheap. Yeah. And that's kind of how the traditional world works. Whereas when you 3D print, if you make one shoe completely different from the next shoe, and then you do 5 that are similar, and then 1 over here, and then collaborate with pudgy penguins and make them a shoe and do all these amazing things, you can do those maybe 9 shoes I just described, and it's no more expensive than just making one pair. And so we're like, wow, imagine what that can unlock for the space. That to me is a shoe by Web3 for Web3. And so we started to go down the rabbit hole of 3D printing shoes because we'd seen like concept shoes on Instagram, but naturally that's kind of the space that we're interested in. So we'd seen a lot of it. But as we got deeper down that road, we found out that basically everything that we had seen was either a concept shoe that was unwearable, or it had to be a super low fidelity, kind of like scratchy looking, like the step function that we know 3D printing for. You couldn't really get anything that was high quality, smooth. Like you saw them, Cozy, you wouldn't even know that they're 3D printed. They're so smooth, right?
So good.
And yeah, exactly. So I got someone I can call on to vouch for it. And so we had to go down this. By that point, it was like an 8-month rabbit hole of speaking to all the heads of all the 3D printing print makers in the world to basically tell them, pitch us how to use your printer to make our shoe. And then eventually we settled on a partner that was actually able to make this possible. And it wasn't just a partner, but it was the incredible work of my co-founder, who was able to actually create an algorithm that made the cushioning so that it's soft enough and that it's flexible and comfortable, durable enough so that it's actually possible to have a 3D printed wearable in the way that what I will always hang my hat on is the highest quality 3D printed wearable that's ever existed. And so we worked so hard to build that foundation, but the great thing is you build that pipeline once, like you build all the cushioning technology, all the supply chain, all of those things, you build it once, and that's what's been so challenging, is really getting that right. You build that once though, then it switches from really hard to create a shoe to we're gonna have an idea on Monday and have the shoe in our hands by Friday.
That's crazy.
And that to me is the vision.
Man, that is so good. I mean,
and I also remember those shoes, Alex.
The blue ones, like, oh my god.
NFT Fest in Melbourne was wild, and there was some crazy outfits out there, but those shoes stood out, man. I remember them well.
Called Wilder.
Wilder, yeah.
No, awesome, man. You done so well in that, how you executed on that. Not that many people could do that, coming from all the way into execution. A lot of people talk, but executing, I think that's what really speaks to the masses, right? Because now they can really see, okay, he's an executor, not just someone who's working behind the scene, and you have done it so well, and you come across so well. Even when you're speaking, we can just feel the energy, the positivity, the excitement, and you know what? That makes me, you know what I mean? It just makes me want to I need to get in there.
Because he's going to go buy another Bricktopian after this.
I get
Sorry, I don't want to cut it off, Cozy, because you're saying such fun things, but I'd say this for any founder. Our biggest strength is a single mindset that we've applied to everything, right? Like you take on making Bricktopians, which no one had done anything quite like before, and most people might say, oh, that just seems impossible, let's just not do that. Or the same with the brain boot. It's like, okay, well, you don't like the 3D printing technology that exists, so I guess you can't do it. It's like, no, well, let's actually really get onto this and figure out how we're going to do it. The mindset that guides us is that basically we ask ourselves like, okay, if you take it to the extreme, like maybe this seems possible, so then let's walk backwards from there. So to use Bricktopians as an example, it's like, okay, if you were to make it as one giant movie, right, like all of them stitched together, theoretically that's possible, right? It's like, okay, yeah, theoretically that is possible. And it's like, okay, and if you only had to make 5, and you had to make them programmatically and tell it how to make it, it's like, could you do that? It's like, well, yeah, we'd probably figure out how to do 5. It's like, okay, so you can make a movie that would be however many hours that is long, and you can make 5. So there's no reason that you can't make 10,000. There's just a gap between those two concepts. And so you're going to walk your way to that gap. And the same thing happened with 3D printing. We're like, okay, so we know that this material is possible, and we haven't seen other emerging materials, but there's this whole list of materials that we haven't seen in the space. So maybe if we just go down the rabbit hole on every one of those, we'll find one that works. And if they haven't been tried and tested yet, we're going to be the ones to do it. So we just start at the top of the list and work our way to the bottom. And what do you know? By like the 7th one, it's like, okay, no, this one is awesome. Yeah. Let's do that. And it's funny because even those printers are like, yeah, we've always wanted someone to use this for shoes, but we're more focused on making factory pieces or blah blah blah. That we don't really have partners like that. It's like, all right, cool, we're going to be those people. So yeah, that's kind of the mindset that guides us. We just feel like if you could figure out what the two endpoints are, and you know there's some give in the middle, you can do anything that you want. And so that I always say on a Twitter space, we're a brand that's built on building the impossible so that our holders can have something that they will never see anywhere else.
No, that is so true. Yeah. Man, you're living it as well. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a beautiful thing about this. And we're getting very close, and I'm so conscious about, about your time. So, Mike, before we finish, any last words? I know that we touched base a bit earlier. I was going to ask you, what is your advice for founders? I just want to circle back to the same question that you were asked this morning.
Yeah. So I'll give a bit of a different answer. Let me think about it. My biggest advice, and this goes for anyone in Web3 really, is never stop paying attention. The biggest mistake I made was I felt really burnt after the 2018 crash. I didn't want anything to do with it for a little while. And so I was still kind of interested in fiddling around with blockchain tech, but I wanted nothing to do with what was happening on Twitter, what was becoming hot in the space, what emerging use cases we were seeing. And I had a friend come to me and he's like, hey, Alex, there's this really cool, new Ethereum applications coming out. Look at these kitties, and they're kind of like Neopets, and you confuse them, and this is MetaMask, and this is how you download this, and there's all these other ones coming out. And I'm sure he ended up getting a CryptoPunk because it's like they say what the nerds are doing on the weekend. I consider myself one of these nerds normally. I say that endearingly, is what everyone will be doing one day on the weekdays, right? And I should have never stopped paying attention. And so now the thing I've learned is the bear market is where all the opportunities are. So whether you're a builder, an investor, or anyone in between, you should be paying attention now. But the last thing I'd say actually is, in terms of practical advice, is start growing your audience now. You are in no rush. You don't need 100,000 followers. You don't need 20,000. But people like Zeneca and Farouk, I tracked their growth. They only had 20,000 followers at the start of the bull market. They ended with 300,000, amazing businesses, amazing teams. They're celebrated in the space. So if you can just work on day by day growing yourself, becoming better, sharing value with the broader ecosystem, when it all comes back around again, you'll be in the perfect position to create some incredible opportunities out of it. So yeah, those are my 2 pieces of advice. Don't stop paying attention and grow your audience during this period, because you've got time and you'll do incredible things in the bull market if you do.
I couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, like you say it so well, because my last thing that I was going to sort of say to the community is that we had so last night was our first meetup event for 2023, and we thought, you know what, we'll organize a pitch night. So for that one, we received close about, just under 40 pitches, and these pitches were all received between like Brisbane and Gold Coast. That's it, because we didn't want to have people there physically for the first pitch night. So out of that, we picked 4 pitches. The first in first lag, because we want to give everyone the opportunity. So, and with that one, we had 4 pitches organized, and out of those 4, we invested in 3 pitches, and it was like $500,000. So one project $350,000, the other project was $100,000, and the last project was $50,000. So last night we invested in how, and then and you said it right, because this is the time that you really want to invest. This is not the time to be scared and run away, because we did that in the .com time and we learn our lessons, right? And it's the same thing, but it's different smell, right? So we learned the lesson. So we are in this for the long haul, and we need to invest in people, not in projects, but in people, because we want to bet on the jockey, not on the horse, so that we know as founders, when you invest in people, what happens is the projects can be successful and fail, but failing a project doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It means like, okay, you went through the right avenues, and maybe the market conditions, or it could be something personal, or whatever it is, right? But then what happens is you grow as a person going into this. So that's even more experience as a founder, because you know what, that emotion, you can't teach anyone that emotion. That emotion comes through going through the experience, hitting that wall. So, and we are saying, okay, look, if you hit the wall, all right, let's talk. It's not time to just pack and leave. It's time to, okay, what is your next idea? Because we invested in you, not on the project. So and that's it. And like you said, being accountable, that's super important, as a founder. So, Mike, you said it so well.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't think you could have put it any better, Cozy, to wrap it up, because that's what I think of every single day is, if I could just be a better founder for my Bricktopian community, then the things that we can share and create together are incredible. I'm conscious that I made you guys go to Google Meet instead of your normal.
We got rugged by Google.
We got rugged. We did get rugged by Google.
I just wanted to say to Alex, he's still on the Twitter space. But,
let's see if we can invite Alex to join us.
Yep, but I've been loving his threads.
Oh man!
And he's been getting into the AI like us as well.
Right? Exactly. I mean, let's see. But so let's see whether Alex is going to join us. All right. Anyway, that's the thing is now. I think it's time to finish off anyway. I think we just reached that 1 hour. We're going to keep it to that much so that we're not going to bore anyone from listening to our voices. But right. But this is like an awesome example, right? As a founder, what you go through as emotional and crazy, right? I mean,
it's a big process, and even things that Alex was talking about with the shoes or building the community. It looks simple in hindsight, but it's like Bitcoin. Yeah. When Satoshi created it, that makes sense. But before that, people had been struggling for many years trying to pull the pieces together to make a digital currency.
That's it, right? Yeah. And once we see it, then it adds like, we can do it. I think that's like, Alex has already done it, and there's now no one can say like, we don't know how to 3D print. We don't know how to do that, because someone has already done it, right? So it's like someone like once one person done it, then everyone can do it. It's not like whether it can be done or not, because someone has achieved it, right? I think that's the beauty of this space, that you're going to inspire others to do even more greater things. What is the next thing from here?
Yeah, definitely.
And but like everyone in this space, that's a beautiful thing. But I just want to use this opportunity to thank everyone who tuned in today, and massive thank you to Alex. I know that he took that time to speak with us. So Alex, thank you so much for your time today, and also to everyone who joined us. All right, we have Alex on Twitter.
Hey,
all right.
Sorry, I had this one muted. I was messaging you on Twitter. Hey, sorry about the Google Meet situation. Next time I'll get Teams and join you guys on your platform. But Cozy, if you want me to jump in, I'm happy to on like a video call to wrap the podcast.
Yeah.
But if not, I'm also happy to wrap it here.
Yeah, let's wrap it here. You know what? I'm conscious of your time as well, mate, and I want to stick to that hour as well. So
cool. Can I just say before we jump off?
Yes.
Thank you so much for such an engaging and enjoyable combo. Give Charlie a big high five from me as well.
All right, high five, Charlie. All right.
Thanks,
That was
Alex.
awesome. If you ever guys want me back, I'm definitely happy to jump in and speak again. There's so much we could talk about for hours, but yeah, thank you for giving me the chance to share my story. And I really love the attitude that you guys bring to the Web3 space. So I think everyone has to make sure that they're following you guys, especially my bricks. I'll make sure they all show you guys some love, because we really appreciate the platform to share what we're up to.
Oh, thank you, brother. That's beautiful. That's like beautiful words there. I mean, that's the thing is, right? Together, I think that's the only way we can grow together, right? I mean, it's beautiful, and having that different from Web 2 to Web 3, I think that's what makes it super cool. So thank you, Alex.
It's our superpower.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everyone's in this space who are like really truly doing things. That's a superpower, and
Yep.
It's awesome. So thank you so much to Alex and everyone from Bricktopian, the community. And on that note, and I also want to thank everyone who attended last night.
Yes,
At our meetup. We had close to about 150 people last night, isn't it? Or
Yep.
a little bit more?
A little bit more than that.
A little bit
but
more than 150. Looking at the numbers, and the thing is, like, it was like, oh my God, your event was great. But what I'm saying to everyone is, if you didn't turn up, this event would not have been even going forward, right?
Yeah.
Because it takes like one person to say like, oh, you know what, I'm not going to go to that because they it got enough people there. But if everyone said that, no one's going to turn up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who attended and showed and gave love.
Yeah.
So on that note, Alex, any last words that you want to put out there, mate, before we finish?
No, just once again, thank you. More than anything, just thank you for always bringing great vibes, because it's hard to... the Web3 space is often like so opinionated or combative, or crypto Twitter can be insane, but it's nice when you meet like-minded people that share the same vision for this space. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for an amazing space.
And thank you too, man. Same to you.
Yeah. Likewise. All right.
All right, guys.
Alrighty.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, mate.
You too,
Lots
buddy.
of love. All right.
You too, man. See you, Charlie. See you, Cozy.
See you, Alex.
See you, mate.
On that note, Twitter Nation, Insta Nation, we'll catch you next week.
Next week.
Yeah, next week. So next week's going to be something little bit intellectual. It's going to be interesting, right?
Yes, yes.
What is it going to be next week, Charlie?
Token mapping.
Token
within
mapping.
Australia.
Woo! I can't wait. No.
yes. I've done a little bit of digging, but
Yeah.
I was hoping there was someone else had done all the research and put out a YouTube video for me. It looks like I've got to go the old-fashioned way and dig into the documents
Yeah.
and have a bit of read and see what the government's planned out. As me and
Yeah.
Craig were talking earlier today, there's some undefined definitives within there that we're still like, well, could it be used like this? Could it not be? And we'll have our lawyer Maureen in and
Yeah.
a couple of special guests. So
That's right.
we'll talk about it then more.
100%. So I think what we'll do is we'll schedule the Twitter space and we'll pin to the top.
Yeah.
So that way we don't have to scroll through like hundreds of
Hundreds of Surtech and
Yeah.
videos
All
and
those
memes and good mornings.
Cool. All right. On that note, guys, we're going to rock the space. Much love.
See you guys.
See you later.
See you guys.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place.
Subscribe.